We're moving on to our final story. This was more fun and lighthearted. So actually, I don't know if everyone knows this, but that interview that went viral for Shannon Sharpe and Cat Williams actually kind of nudged Joe Rogan, I guess, in a sense where he said that he would like to interview Cat Williams. He actually said that on Twitter. Well, that interview did happen. There are three parts that I want to focus on for this interview. The first part is where they talk a little bit about foreign policy. One thing I will say is this. This interview was different than I expected. I actually expected them to talk more about the comedy scene since both of them are comedians. I thought they would talk a little bit more about like Hollywood and what they went through as comedians. But this interview, they talked about a variety of topics, not what I expected. They talked about space. They talked about, the government not wanting you to do certain things. They talked about foreign policy. They talked just very briefly about Hollywood. It wasn't as long. They talked about cars. It was just very different. One thing I also noticed with this interview is that the energy level is different in this interview when you compare it to the Shannon Sharpe interview. And that could just be because Joe Rogan has a different interview style where he's kind of just chill and that kind of thing. But at some parts in this interview, it almost feels like Cat Williams feels a little bit shy. And I think you'll see that as well. So let's get into the foreign policy question. I thought this part was really interesting. So let's show this clip first.
Are we allowed to have a foreign policy when we are violating the policies here?
So that question I thought was good. It's like, how is the U.S. allowed to have a foreign policy when we're violating the policies here in the United States? Brings up that question again about the U.S. policing the world and telling other countries, how they should, or telling other leaders how they should manage people in their countries, installing other leaders in those countries, and removing other leaders in those countries. Who is the United States to make that decision when we can't even, I don't say we can't even, our government won't even take care of the people, all the people in this country. Something to think about there. Mm-hmm.
Right. You see what I'm saying? Like what do you mean the immigrants are getting a check and we're putting them up in places that what? You mean in the homeless people's face?
Right in the homeless people's faces.
Like,
right?
Let us show you what we could have done.
Right.
Wow.
Crazy.
That was an important point there, too, especially since a lot of people have been complaining about what's happening in New York. It's also happening here in Boston. The point that Cat Williams made, like, oh, we're going to show you what we could have done for you, but we decided not to. Interesting. Eric, did you put the link to the debate in the chat? I think people are looking for it. Okay, sorry.
It's not okay as a society.
No. Well, did you see the scam that they were trying to do in New York City? Where they were trying to give them debit cards with $10,000, but there's people getting cuts all along the way?
That wasn't a scam. That was business that got uncovered.
Yeah.
And I'll prove it to you. When you go to, like, if you go to jail in New York, everybody goes to Rikers Island. So I was in Rikers Island. So if you got money on you when you go in, they give you a card when you leaving. And it's got money on it, your amount. Like, systems are the system.
Interesting. So a little bit there about foreign policy. And I want to get to this other clip here, too, because there's 3 different topics. Yeah. Okay. This one is a little bit funny. This one kind of cracked me up. I couldn't believe he asked this question, but then I should have said, no, I should believe he asked this question. We get into a conversation here about menthol cigarettes, right? So I told you this interview is kind of all over the place. There's a bunch of different things that they talk about, going from foreign policy to talking about menthol cigarettes. But Cat Williams is actually, he's very, very smart. He was considered to be a prodigy. I don't know if everyone knows that. And he gets into the history of menthol. But listen to this question that Joe Rogan's had. Listen to this.
Of that forever.
I think a big part of it, though, is how much does your government control you? Even when things don't even make sense. Like in California, they made flavored vapes illegal. Can you imagine? You're like, strawberry mist is our number one
That was
problem.
fine, but they let it also hurt black people in that it counted menthol as a flavor and hurt Newports.
So you...
Let me pause here for a second. They actually removed them here in Massachusetts too. They removed some of the vape styles or whatever.
Can't sell menthol cigarettes in California.
Right. They have their own cigarettes. They have
wild.
non-menthol Newports. It's terrible.
Why do black people like menthol so much? What's that about?
Oh, Joe. He said, why do black people like menthol so much? Here we go.
It's a totally different type of cigarette.
You're going to get me canceled.
No.
This is very racist, this conversation, even though neither of us are. Go figure.
Just talking about a type of cigarette that people enjoy?
Just saying, why do black people like Newport so much? And a black person actually getting ready to answer this, it's terrible on all ends.
I don't think it is.
Well, I don't think it is.
We're going to talk about both sides of this because this is really this reminds me of, look, when I was in high school, right? So one of my friends, so we grew up like pretty diverse. Like, you guys know my parents were military, so I grew up around everybody. That's just kind of how it was, right? But one of my friends, she asked me one time, she said, have you ever noticed, and she was talking about another friend of mine, right? Have you ever noticed that, we'll just say student A, have you ever noticed that student A, like, doesn't use lotion? And student A was white. And so the polite thing to do is not to ask this person this question, especially in front of a lot of people. So my friend, I didn't know the answer. I wasn't really paying attention, but my friend decided to take it upon herself. We were in high school and she asked student A, hey, how come you don't wear lotion? Is that like a white people thing? And I was just like, oh my God. Like, she said in front of everybody. And so student A was like, well, no, I mean, I don't have to wear lotion. And then it was kind of a weird conversation because then other people in the classroom were kind of just looking at her like, or looking at each other. So it was brought to our attention then that and I'm not going to say all white people, but for some white people, they don't wear lotion. And like for black people, like we have to, right? Like, cause I don't want to be ashy. So then it brought up a whole conversation about what it means to be ashy. Crazy day. But it was just the way it was done. Like she said in front of everybody, basically like, how come white people don't put lotion on? I was like, no, okay, it's a conversation. It's just an interesting thing. So I felt like Joe Rogan was just basically, he probably was curious about that for quite some time. And I guess he felt like this is someone that he could ask that question to and probably not get cussed out.
Is either because we have a new.
It's like if you started asking me about spaghetti, I'm not going to get offended. You started asking me about Italian food or why are Italian people so loud. I'm not gonna get
How
offended.
many people have ever died of pasta-related illnesses?
A lot,
Joe.
A lot of fatzos out there kicking the bucket, bro.
That's not because of pasta.
That's an overabundance of carbohydrates, sir.
What is happening here? Jinho said Asians don't use lotion either. Really? Uh-oh, I started something now. Chris said white people can be ashy as fuck too. My wife is white as a ghost and she's ashy all the damn time. Oh my God. Okay. Well, we're learning some things here tonight. I am sorry.
Gotta be fat wherever they live, sir.
Maybe. That's an overindulgence.
Gonna be great bread eaters in
delicious
Uzbekistan.
high carbohydrate food. They couldn't stop it. People are addicted to food like they're addicted to anything. And if there's a thing that I could ever be addicted to, it's that.
Right. That's all of us, though.
All of us.
And what a blessing.
Yeah. We have so much.
Starving people are addicted to
Exactly.
anything, and they don't have food-related illnesses.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
But back to where we were.
Yeah.
You were
The
asking
less
me about
versus the right.
the menthol cigarettes.
Oh, that's right.
And the answer is, we value strength in product.
So this is an interesting thing. I do more pauses here because I don't want to get like the copyright thing for Joe Rogan. There is a whole conversation in the live chat right now about lotion. This is it's very Soul said Asians do wear lotion. Oh my God. I don't know if I should have brought up that conversation. Someone mentioned or deodorant. I don't even know. Okay, Indy. What does ashy mean? So ashy is like, see, I'm not ashy, so I can't show you. Ashy is like, you know, like certain parts of your body, like your elbows, your knees, maybe like your knuckles, just certain parts of your body. If you don't moisturize, let's say I just got out the shower, then they can turn like kind of white, you know, and then it's like you're ashy. So you prevent that by using lotion when you get out of the shower, or you take care of that by using lotion to get rid of the ashiness. I can't believe I'm having this conversation. Let me get back to the video.
So there's this whole thing with liquor and malt liquor and the difference between the two, and one is richer and stronger.
The more potent version.
Right. And as
that makes
a
sense.
people, we tend to go with those products.
Things that are stronger. That makes sense.
Right. Like before things were called concentrate.
Yeah.
That's what we appreciated.
That makes sense.
Concentrated. And the fact that menthol is a natural thing. So, you know,
Yep.
Right.
anybody who is from the South knows about mint plants. And
So see, that part there is really interesting. And then also in reference to the menthol, I don't know if you guys know this, but when my comrade Rome from RBM, when he came to visit Boston the very first time to do Tour for the Poor here, Rome was like, none of these stores have menthol cigarettes. And that was something I didn't think about because, you know, Massachusetts laws are different from like Michigan laws, right? So I didn't think to warn him, but I had to explain to him. I said, oh yeah, they actually like got rid of menthol cigarettes here. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah, I forgot about that. Like that happened a couple years ago or whatever. But yeah, that was part of by the way, that was part of Joe Biden's administration that made that rule. Just FYI.
And menthol
Always.
used as a skincare product, like injuries and shit.
right, like you appreciate that as a flavor profile as well.
Right.
You know,
That makes sense.
the mint julep.
It's just telling people they can't have that anymore. Who the fuck are you? That's my position.
Well, and that's a noble position, and we appreciate the fact that you represent that. But the truth of the matter is not pretty. And the truth of the matter is that most people would like to be controlled more by their government if they
Make
had.
it easier? Maybe.
Most people are all for government control as long as they don't have to discuss it.
Yeah. As long as it works in their favor, they'll give up.
Do you guys think that's true? Do you think that most people are in favor of government control? I don't seem to get that impression from Americans. Just curious about that.
Rights. And then hopefully the next administration that's
Rights are
right-wing
generally
will abuse
worthless
those
at the
rights.
time.
Okay, so that's the conversation there about menthol cigarettes. By the way, if you Google this discussion, people are already coming after Joe Rogan because he asked that question. Now, here's another interesting thing, and this is about the pyramids. So like I said, this interview was all over the place, but I don't know if you guys have heard this before. I don't know if there has been a lot of smoke that happened like during this interview, but I wanted you guys to hear this and tell me what you think about what Cat Williams said about how the pyramids were built. There is a lot of discussion about lotion happening in the chat still. It's really funny. Listen to this about building the pyramids.
And the real speculation is they think that the people who built the pyramids built them way earlier than the conventional dating is. They think there's real evidence that shows they're 9,000, 11,000 years old. Easy.
No people built the pyramids.
No people?
No.
Who built them?
No people built the pyramids. And if you look around the world, you see certain telltale things that let you know that advanced machinery was in usage. Look, there.
Pause here. I never heard this before. So Cat Williams is saying that no people built the pyramids, that machinery was used to build the pyramids. So I don't know if they just smoking a lot of smoky smoke or whatever, but I just, but this is interesting what he says here though.
For sure. This whole thing where slaves are stronger people is a fallacy. We like to believe that slaves are stronger. Slaves are weaker because they don't eat the right food and they live a terrible life. Your slave population is not smarter and better condition unless you're enslaving the Jews.
They stopped thinking that quite a while ago. They think it was actually skilled labor because of the way they were eating. They found what their camps were, where their food was. They ate like very good food. So they think they were actually skilled labor, but also probably forced skilled labor. But that's probably not the people who built it. That's probably the people that were working on it. That's probably the people that worked in the village or in the city.
How many companies have done renovations on the White House? None of them have done enough renovation that they can claim it's their White House. So, yes, thousands of years worth of people were there. But that doesn't have anything to do with the building of it.
Who do you think built it?
Well, understand, we know enough now to understand that this was a complex. This was not...
right.
We've been led to believe that this is how much they worshipped their dead bodies.
Right.
But the evidence doesn't show any of that.
No, it doesn't.
Like when you...
Pause for a second. Actually, especially when we went to the Met Museum in New York, there's an Egyptian exhibit there right now, or it might still be there. It was when we went in November. And that is one of the things that they do tell you, like during that exhibit, all the different artifacts that you look at that is supposedly from Egypt. They do say that like they appreciated the dead so much that that's why they built those pyramids and stuff like that. So it's really interesting.
You see inside when they have those intricate carvings and paintings and stuff in gold and stuff, you have to remember this is in a windowless room, folks. There's no candle soot. There's no this. It's clearly a power plant and built specifically for that location on this planet. For
what do you think it was powered
usage.
By?
So that's the part that I never thought about before. He said, if you walk into like those caves and those like pyramids or whatever, he's like, there was no light, but you see all of these drawings and all these different, remember how they used to tell stories basically they would tell stories through pictures. So you see all of it and it's like perfectly lined up too, like, wee. And so it's like, how were they able to do that? Without any type of machinery, without any other type of tools. And also, like he said, it's dark in there. So how were they able to see? It just brings up interesting questions that I never really thought about, to be honest.
The hot water springs underneath it.
So it was powered by the hot water springs? And to what end? How do you know all this, first of all? Is this marijuana talk?
I don't think so. This is...
where did you read this?
If you follow information about humankind, you find out that in all parts of history, people were coming to this region for their information and their knowledge and their things
Yes.
that were forbidden, and
Yep.
these were not these were the highest of human civilization here.
Not even comparable to anyone else.
No.
Nor since. Nor
now
since.
or yeah,
Nor since.
right.
The
And-
Great Pyramid of Giza is insane.
right. Like
It's insane.
like even Tesla says that this is where he came to get the information. But if you follow that information pathway, it leads you to this character called Thoth, right? And the emerald tablets of Thoth are literally mind changing and mind blowing, just because you understand when this was written and the terminology being used is
When was it written?
far too accurate for now. So
It's interesting.
I'm sure that
So yeah, watch the full interview on Joe Rogan's podcast. It's over 3 hours long, and just an interesting conversation between the two of them. Because, like I said, I expected that they would talk about the comedy scene, since both of them have been comedians. And both of them have been through the entertainment business, but no, they talk about all different types of stuff. Like they were talking about space and the ocean. And I was like, wow, that was really interesting. But he's really got me wondering about these pyramids now. Like I've been thinking about this since I've seen this video.